Hello and welcome. As you know, I'm Dr. Pauline Baird. I'm here to tell stories. I'm a cultural bearer from the village of Buxton, Guyana. I tell our whispered stories, our family histories, our practice, hidden, and sometimes long forgotten traditions. And what the stories say, I come in and sit down, let me talk. As you know, we're in Dara. Dara, hey, this is my little sister, like this car. Y'all don't jealous me, but she's got you covered. And today we have an interesting young woman from Guyana. She is Kayshell Jennings. Kayshell, what is story, say girl?
Ah, everything all right. Everything all right.
Good, good, good. People, Kayshell is here to tell us about herself and her journey. But she's a medical student. I hope you know that. If you don't know that, please learn that now. She's a medical student who started her journey, I think, in China. And then she moved back to Guyana during the pandemic, and she's there and doing her clinicals. Thank you so much for taking this opportunity to chat with us. Yeah, I like this head wrap, this thing backward. Anyway, Keisha, how it looking? I look like a old woman?
It's looking good. It's looking good.
Don't tell me wrong.
Good job.
Yes. So a styling this way today, a little bit over the ears, Every time I do it, it looks different. All right, let's talk.
Lovely.
All right, so Kayshell, I've invited you here to tell stories about your journey through life. Tell us a little bit more about yourself and how you grow so big.
Morning, neighbor, morning, or good afternoon, or good evening. Kayshell, as Miss Molly May rightly said, and I'm here to tell my story of how I grow so big. Well, some days I sit down myself and I just be like, girl, how you grow so big?
Yes. Uh-huh.
When I was younger, I felt like I always wanted to grow up, but then I'm older. I'm like, oh my goodness, stop. Where does the time go? Stop.
Yes, it happens. You think 18, you can't wait to meet 18. Yeah.
Yes. Yeah.
You got your tea yet? You drink tea?
I'm good. So while I'm telling my story, I'm going to do something very Guyanese. I'm going to make a cup of black tea, as they say. Very simple. Yeah, and tea has been an important part of my life journey. I would say because living in China, we have our tea bag. The Chinese use their herbal teas. So it might not be all the time, we have the rose tea and all these things and the green. So we have our tea bag and just gonna put a little bit of sugar, not too much here, just a little, just add that sweet.
Watch the sugar, girl. When you said black tea,
cane sugar.
When you said black tea, I thought for a minute you going for like
the fever grass
tea. Yeah, like sugar water.
Not say all the fever grass. This is probably the British black tea.
Yes. So you got your China black tea. All right, good.
Yeah.
Well, people.
So you just pour the water.
Yeah.
All right. And that's basically it.
You like to do with some Congo pump or some teas? I'm right now.
Or teas, and I would recommend, even though I'm having this person, a really nice brew of the fever grass and the ginger, especially during this COVID time.
Right. You see, the medical student talking. Yes, girl. There are two ways people talk about how you grow so big. Sometimes they look at you and they'll size you up and say, hey, who you think you do? Who you think you are? Who you think you grow so big? Like as a condemnation or condescending.
Yeah.
But I'm not interested in that one today. I really want to know about your journey. Because, I tell our whispered stories and our traditional stories, and I want to put them in context so they can serve us for now and the future. I just don't want to keep looking back. I want to know, what are people doing? What are women doing? How they understand their journey. So can you tell us about a story or share a story that you don't mind people globally learning from you?
Okay, so I think I'm a person with a lot of stories to share, and like my life has literally been a storybook. My mother would say, "Because your life is a storybook. There's always something happening."
Mhm.
But one of the stories that I would like to share today would be living life without limits, and that's something I have learned.
Mhm.
And I championed a quote in 2019 that said, "There is no box. There is no limit to what you can do or achieve as an individual." And now this stems from a lot of times where, growing up in Linden, I'm from Linden, Guyana,
Yeah.
and you always feel so limited by your circumstance or limited by, I grew up when my parents weren't together. They divorced when I was a young child. And, this happened to me and that happened to me. And I could not foretell that when I was growing so big, so many things would happen for this Linden girl from Amelia's Ward Primary School, but it did. And in 2019, I really held on to that. And I said, you know what? Those things describe me.
Mhm.
They're I am as an individual, but they don't define the kind of life I'm allowed to live. And I live limitlessly and had my first, well, I won't call it fully solo, but semi-solo travel to East Africa.
Oh,
From China to
from
East
China.
Africa. Yes, from China to East Africa in 2019. Guyanese girl. I've been to Africa before, Kenya in 2016, and that was in a group. It was very safe. I had people who did all the itinerary for me. I didn't have to study about anything. I was just going with this group, wide eyed and with so much expectations. But in 2019, I was like, you know what? I'm going to do this by myself.
Right. So let me go back a little bit. You said
Uh-huh.
you have this philosophy or this mantra, as I understand it. There is no
Yes.
box. How
Yes.
you come to get to that point, and at what age that you had this mindset or maybe a
Hmm.
mind shift that there's no box? Where that come from?
I think that had started coming from early in my 13, 14 years of age. I was at Bishop's High School. I'm a Bishop's girl.
Okay.
And, yes, I'm a Bishop's girl. I went to Bishop's High School and then I went to Mackenzie High School for a few years. And as a Bishop's girl, I felt I was so, I think, nervous. And it took a lot for people to push me out of that comfort zone. Like, Kayshell, we see your potential.
Right.
Because for me, it's like, oh, me, small Kayshell, big world. I'm
Mhm.
just gonna stay here and play it safe. But everything around me was like, nope, 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 nope. Your life is not a life that is meant to be played safe. We're gonna push you out there.
Yeah.
We're gonna push it. We're gonna send you up for leadership conferences because we see it in you. And that's one thing I must thank my teachers for always seeing the potential in me, even though at times I didn't see it in myself.
So therefore, the people around you help to affirm this notion that you can be better, bigger, and there are more things to do. I really like it.
Yes.
I really like
Um,
that. So the journey of growing so big involves a community or interested parties who
yes.
invested in your life. Yes. So here you
Yes.
are finding yourself going on this solo journey. Tell us about this solo journey to Africa. This Guyanese girl by yourself.
But it's just well, first things first, you have to. I'm of age, so I didn't have to seek permission. But there's
Right.
a way you have to this information to a Guyanese mother
Somebody Guyanese mother, we tell the lady.
who is like, and I'm going to just put my mother on the spot. This lady was not with it. She was like, all right, I already let you go to China, but I know you're okay because you're with the teachers and students and whatever.
Yeah.
But Africa in and now by yourself, I was
Oh
like, Mom,
gosh.
she was like, I see they had some flooding or something somewhere in Africa there. I said, ma'am, part. Which part, ma'am? And she's like, somewhere right there, And there's a lot of time in terms of our education and growing up as Guyanese, we think of Africa as this one big country,
Right.
a lot of education is needed in terms of saying, there are different countries, there are different places, there's places that are just like our country, there are places that are not so similar.
Mhm.
Yeah. First thing was convincing or reassuring and reaffirming a Guyanese mother that her daughter would be safe and is all right and is very sure of what she's doing.
Yeah. Tell me something. Did
Uh-huh.
you hear? I gotta go here, because when I was growing up, I used to hear you can bring any other man, but never an African man.
Yes,
You
and
ever
some
heard that?
people
Because
hear
if
it.
you marry them, you come back crazy.
Mm,
Because these men
mm,
can get two and three wives. It's the stereotype. That's what I heard growing up.
mhm, mhm,
I don't know
mhm.
if people still talk that way. Was that kind of concern there, like
Yes.
engagements with?
There is, realistically speaking, there is a lot of stereotypes when it comes to people from the continent.
Yeah.
And I am grateful for my exposure in China to people from across the breadth of Africa, from the east to the west, north, and south. And it actually opened up my perspective as well as a young Guyanese, because that's another thing about the limitless perspective. It's not only limitless for you as an individual, it's also an unlimited perspective of other people. Because when
Yes.
we have a box mentality of people, we put them in a box. Whatever we see on the African moods, the
Yes.
obia, every
Mhm, mhm.
obia. That's the kind of mentality that we have. So if we say there is no box, let's give people a chance. Let's learn about them, and we'll see we're more similar than different
Mhm.
in a lot of ways.
Yes. Um, that's what travel does for you. And I think
Mm,
we have to chalk it down on the journey, because there's a lot of paradigms that get shifted, you know, just as how you're seeking to have your journey, there are people on that journey too. And as African Guyanese, oh, by the way, everybody, Kayshell, what are you in Epadagy? Talk to us about that.
Oh, so I work at the International Decade for People of African Descent Assembly Guyana as their public relations officer. So if you don't know, we're in the decade for people of African descent, the UN declared decade, and IPADG is the country coordinating unit for the decade for people of African descent. So we work closely along with a lot of African Guyanese organizations promoting the recognition, justice, and development of people of African descent here in Guyana.
Right. So I wanted you to talk about that, because having that kind of leadership role and thinking about
Mm,
stereotyping people who are like us, it
mm,
it brings a kind of a conflict and irony. Here we are
mhm.
talking about elevation and justice and all of that, and yet we're having this other kind of discourse. Not that we will shove things under the rug and not call a spade a spade, but we
Mhm.
have a heightened awareness of how we walk in the world, how people of our own kind, our own descent, like that, operate as well. So, any revealing things or impactful things happen on your this solo journey? Because I really want to hear more.
Yes, I think it was revealing from the beginning. I think getting onto the plane, and I remember meeting a girl from Kenya, and she was just so kind and so nice. She was so interested in who I was and as an individual and about this country that I'm from in
Yes.
Guyana. And she was so kind. I was like, from the inception, I think she was kind to the point I almost missed her flight for her being kind to me, because
Oh
she was
gosh.
sitting with me and keeping my company. And then
Yes.
we were on the same flight. So,
Mm.
and that it was just crazy. But, in her kindness, even when she got to Kenya before me, she still stuck around at the airport a little bit to wait, because she knew my flight was coming in a little bit late. So to just ensure that, okay, this girl that is traveling alone,
Mhm.
that has a friend in Kenya, but she's going to meet them alone, is okay. So that was just an eye opener for me, and a welcoming eye opener, that the
Mhm.
kindness of people, it exists. It's universal.
Yes, I would concur, because I have met Africans overseas. In particular, I met some Africans in Palau the very first time
Mm,
after I left home. And as soon as these guys saw me, they said, "Sister, my sister." And listen to me, like, "I'm not your sister." I say, "Yes, your sister. You're my sister." I was taken aback. Then I went to the Philippines. There's a large contingent of Africans
mm,
there, students and stuff. Every time, my sister. it was kind of heartwarming and eye-opening, you know.
Mhm.
Well, and I compare that to meeting other people of African descent in other places, and they won't even look at me. And when they don't look at me, I knew exactly where they came from. They were not from Africa.
Mm.
Yeah.
Mm. And that's eye opening indeed. That's really eye opening, and I think it as much as they're giving us this camaraderie. I think
Mhm.
it's just on our end to just open up our hearts a little bit and not be like, oh, I was you're who you are. I'm Guyanese.
Yes.
I'm but I am also, I feel African in a sense, and then not in a sense because I wasn't
Right.
born, which I feel slightly gives me an unfair advantage
Also,
because
also,
I feel like I needed that. I would have really wanted to have that connection. I feel like I've been robbed of something, and they see me as this tropical person, that comes from South America. Wow, but I feel like, oh my goodness, I am missing this history and this culture and this, the genetics of the just knowing what your lineage is, who your
yeah,
great grandparents are, and that I feel like that's something I genuinely always feel like, wow, I know I'm happy to be Guyanese, but at the same time, I would have loved to have this
yeah.
section of my
Mhm.
identity. Yeah, yeah,
Yeah. It's a duality of it all. And it harks back to
yes,
something you said earlier. There's not one story about Kayshell. None of us is made up of
mhm,
one story.
mhm,
We are so
mhm.
complex and multifaceted that we cannot tell one story. And we have different longings and things like that, and we seek to get connection and belonging. Right.
Yes,
Yes. So when you got there, how were you
yes.
received? And were there
I
anything
was
things that go ahead.
So when I got there, I had planned my trip in China with my Kenyan friends in China.
Mhm.
So basically, going to meet there. One young lady, she was cool, and this is just the value of kindness and being nice to people. She was like, "Kayshell, you don't worry. My brother lives there with his wife, and they're gonna take care of you." And I'm like, "Okay, I don't know these people, but it's an extension of kindness."
Mhm.
And I remember getting Uber. Yes, guys, there's Uber in Kenya.
Dang. Yes, there's Uber.
I got an Uber from the airport to the location, and I'm like an adrenaline rush because this is the first time I'm going to this family's house. I'm taking an Uber. The Uber driver was okay. Where are you from? I'm like, I'm Guyana from Guyana. Telling me, all these things and showed me around a little bit. So I had a mini tour and I felt so safe. He had his newspaper, he shared it with me to read about certain things. And surprisingly enough, in 2019, a little bit before I went to Kenya, they had had um, a bomb, uh, a bombing actually in one of the hotels, like in the higher, in the suburban area.
Right.
That was a and people had lost their lives.
Mhm.
So even my preparation to go in, I had a little bit of a hesitancy, like, oh, should I still do this?
Mhm.
You know, the taxi driver, I mentioned it to him how I was having second thoughts, and he was like, oh, these things happen all over, but we can't let them win. As in the people who carried out the attack, they're mean, they're evil, they had ill intentions, but
Mhm.
overall are lovely people, and I'm happy that you came so that you could you can experience that rather than saying, okay, this place had this bombing, and I'm not gonna go because that's my entire experience wrapped up there. What if it happens to me? So I'm happy
Mhm.
actually that I step out a bit into faith and said, okay, come on, um, let me give this a chance
Yeah.
and
Mhm.
pray, obviously, and just count on uh, the Heavenly Father to keep me safe. And the entire trip was safe for the most part. Like in terms of safety, that was not a major red flag.
Right.
In
So
going.
here again, no box. Because if you let the
No,
fears
okay.
about whatever is happening, then you wouldn't get this experience. Right.
Yeah, that's true.
Yeah.
That's true. That's so true.
So,
That is so true.
so you got there to this family. How was living in with an African family? How was the experience
Oh, it
living with
was
an
so I
African
was with I think you call them a middle class working family. Mom and husband are working, they have a baby, and they had a living nanny, which is lovely because she ended up being like my nanny as well.
Oh, got you grown.
Something you don't, well, for me that was like a culture difference because I don't see a lot of um working families, especially in Guyana, having a living nanny. Like, okay, there's someone that lives with us and does the cooking and does the cleaning while we go to work. And I
Right.
feel like it definitely should be a thing because it helps their household to run so much more
Mhm.
efficiently. They
Right.
come home, they get time to feed the baby because the food is finished, and they can do it all again the next day. And they're like in their late 20s, and I was like, yep, this is
That's
it.
the life.
This is it.
So yeah,
This,
imagine that. Yeah, I've seen.
yeah.
I watched the African movies. And
Mhm.
see the nannies and the caretakers and stuff. Yeah, it's something else.
Yeah, yeah,
It's
yeah.
something.
Yeah, so it's very much a thing. And they're well respected and treated well for my family, like family. It was like another member of
The
the
family.
family. Or
Mhm.
she's getting paid. Yeah. So that was really lovely. What I loved about my whole family, they gave me a really good introduction and welcome. And I wasn't babied in terms of like, okay, Kayshell, where are you going? They're just like, okay, you're here. These are the, Ubers or this cost. This is where you go get money. They were like, okay, she seems to know what she's about. And I probably didn't, but I requested their assistance whenever necessary.
Mhm.
But in terms of like traveling and getting about, that was up to me. And one of the first places I wanted to go, I remember as soon as I landed, I told them I wanted to see the giraffes. The giraffes are my absolutely favorite animal. I
How,
think
how so? Why?
seeing them for the first time, I think it's a kinship that just was birthed again through another story and another life experience where I stayed with the host family in Denver, Colorado, and they took me to the Denver Zoo, and that was the first time. And I literally remember seeing these animals and just tears running down my face.
Oh,
And my host family realized that I love them so much. They got a art kind of graphic art piece for me, and
mhm.
it's the giraffe that they have the longest neck. That means they're able to rise above the difficulties. And I felt like the descriptions were so spot on. So
Mhm.
the giraffes have the longest neck, and it symbolizes their ability to rise and to see beyond. They
Yeah.
have long, slender eyelashes, which keeps debris out of their eyes, which signifies that
Oh,
in the midst of turmoil, you're still able to see and have clarity. They have the largest heart of any land mammal. You can Google that; it's true, which
wow.
signifies to love and to be compassionate and to just have this exuberant amount of love for people. And they have unique spots. No two giraffe spots are the same, which just speaks about their uniqueness. So from the eyelashes to the neck to the heart, they were like, Kayshell, this is you, spot on. You are a giraffe. And
I love it. I love it. I don't know anything about the giraffe except it's a very tall animal. I learned something today. Wow.
yes. Yes. So the giraffe has been my animal since then. And a lot of people are like, why is Kayshell obsessed with the giraffe? I'm like, no, it's not just an obsession. It's a really like a kinship with these animals. So
Right.
the first I was like, okay, let me prep for was a visit to the giraffe manor.
Mhm.
Now, big like me and you in this country, you have to learn some Swahili. And that's another thing I would recommend for people who are, thinking about traveling and going on their own. You don't have to learn everything, but a little bit goes a long way. Saying hello, how are you? My name is. And what I find
Gotta speak.
different.
You gotta speak, lady. Come on, speak.
Yes, yes.
Your ethos is
Oh,
on
I
the
can say
line
my name.
here.
Mimini Kayshell. Mimini Kayshell. I can't remember all of my Swahili.
Right.
Um, yeah, it's good to learn a little bit of the country and the culture that you're heading into. It helps you navigate well and open mind a little bit. Not so open that what you who you are is drops out. You want to drop out and forget where you learn, where
No,
you did
no,
go, where you
no.
get
Uh-huh.
everything. So um taking that first trip, I prepped by mapping my route. And I did things a bit unconventional. I was like, okay, yes, I'm going to take the Uber, but I still want to have this experience of like traveling in public transportation. And I think at that age, in 2019, I was young and fearless. I probably young, but a little bit more fearful. I was young and fearless. I was like, I'm going to go in public transportation. I'm just going to get this. So I took an Uber to go. And I realized one thing about being in Africa, I look like the people, but the giveaway is as soon as you open your mouth, things things get okay. Yeah, she's not from around here.
Yeah. You know what?
I was very
Go ahead.
yeah. So I was very observant that okay, Kayshell, you're different, and there are ways you can camouflage the camouflage effect, but there's ways you can
Yeah.
still stand up. So I tried to be quite this. So I did all of my research home. I tried not to look like I was lost. So I would map all my direction, get bus numbers, write them down in a book, cost of, and so on. And my host parents, were like, please be safe. Let us know this is our number. As you go through, you just buzz us by a text. Okay, I got here safely, and so on. I took an Uber to go, and gaffed with, and I did a lot of gaffing, as they would say with the driver. Know what's up, and they know what's happening.
Yes, yes. I find that one
because they don't overcharge you too.
Oh,
That was one
they
good thing.
don't. Wow.
Yeah. They charge you according to the road that you take, so that's very easy in determining prices. Yeah, so I went out there. I had a beautiful time at the manor. I made friends because obviously you got to get somebody to take out your pictures if you're gonna go alone.
That's true.
I got people to take my photos. I kissed the giraffe. Well, fed them, and they gave me a kiss. And had that really
They give you a
beautiful
kiss. How
experience.
they give you a kiss?
Oh, so what happens is that you take the pillet, and then the giraffe tries to get the pillet from your mouth, and you call it a giraffe kiss.
Oh, I
It's
see.
devil. It looks cute in the pictures, but they have like some hairs, like very pointy
Like prickly hairs.
on their mouth. Yes, yes. So I did that. And when I was coming back, I was like walking. I'm like, I'm gonna do this. Going home by myself. I'm not taking an Uber. I think I saw the bus stop. And I'm that friend where I'm saying, oh, I can walk this. Don't listen to me. I'm that friend that says, oh, I think we can walk this. I was walking for like half an hour.
You want them people to say just down there. It's just down there.
Yes, just down there. And I'm like, wow. So I was walking and walking. I found the bus stop. Crazy enough, I was on the opposite side of the road. So if tongue is that way, I was on the way to another place.
Oh gosh.
A bit of funny experiences like this where being on the opposite side of the road could have made me, lose this. But I think I'm a very smart girl. I was listening to people and I said, you going to town? I tried to do an accent and they're like, no, this way. And I crossed the road.
But I found that with journeying and traveling, getting lost is part of the fun. I don't think I've been in any country where I haven't gotten lost.
Mm-hmm.
I'm the queen for getting lost, but you learn so many things. How about taking the unbeaten path? Have you taken the unbeaten path in anything when you're out there in terms of this out of the box experience?
There were a lot of journeys. Well, the entire journey I think required a bit of trust and faith in myself. And it was a stretch to see how much that giraffe compassion can go. Because I remember I was invited to the village and with another family. Like I had these friends from 2016 and I was like, okay, I'm going to get on this bus and I'm going to go visit. And it was like 5 hours journey by bus. And when I got there, moving from the city life, because I was in Nairobi, now to an outskirt village, I can't remember the name. It was like village. The moment I stopped, I was like, "Ooh, like, okay, this is different." It wasn't the city life. We had to hot water running water and Ubering and all kind of thing. These people had oxen, so I'm like, okay,
They had what?
this is a different. The oxen.
Okay. Put to pull the
Yeah, when they have the two,
the yoke and everything. Oh,
right?
okay. Yeah.
Yes, with the yoke and everything. And I think that's the first time I really understood this scripture of the Bible that talks about being unequally yoked. When you see, you realize why you have
Yeah.
to be.
Because you can't do the work, you can't move together. Yeah.
Yes, you gotta move together. And this was different, and I felt like I was a bit I wouldn't say unprepared, but it required me to really step out of the box and be like, okay, so this is just another aspect of this life. Um, and might not offer the same comfort, but the same kindness is there, the same willingness of people to open their house to you. So I would tell people that I've had experiences where I had the spectrum. I've had the city life with the house help to the village with just, firewood and
Yeah,
pots and
and them
having a
cockwackle at the
bath
back there.
outside. Yes, this experience. And I'm so grateful for it. And in each of those moments, I just really took time to pause and appreciate the love that was there. Because I remember sitting with the family around a small table. They made the chair into like a bed for me. And yes,
Yeah.
but they made it the bed, and it whatever they had to give, it was like we're giving our all to this person. I was treated like a queen, I would say. And opening my mind to that experience, it really gives you a sort of I would say an experience that makes you be able to connect to people
Mhm.
and realize there's love in every spectrum. And that's another thing people um, sometimes fail to realize. They think, okay, when we grew up with these images of African children starving.
Yeah.
And I remember an outreach back in 2016, because that was when I was there for a missionary trip.
Mhm.
And I assumed in my mind that, from what I see, these children were always sad,
Mhm.
and it was just always. But then when you get there, we're sharing out candies. And even before we get there, the children were already playing on the street. Happiness exists in all spectrums, and they were
Right.
happy. I mean, we had a little bit of happiness, but we weren't their source of happiness. And that was, I think, a beautiful thing to see. And that, love exists in all, spectrums and people.
Yeah.
My
Yeah, I
mother is
like.
buzzing in the background, and she's reminding me of a trip I made to an orphanage.
Yeah.
And there was a young boy. He said, he heard we were from China, and he said, "Oh, I have something for you." And he came with a handful of coins. Like, he had the Chinese coin, he had a coin from, I think, Ethiopia, he had coins from different countries, and he took out the Chinese ones and he said, "Here, this is for you to pay your bus fare when you go to China." And I was like, "No, I don't need it. You keep it." And I was like, this orphanage in the hills, and this young boy is thinking, you know what? Oh, she's from this. Let me help her. Like, let me give her my coins so that she can take bus, or she can buy something when she goes back to China. And that really like melted my heart to see, like, even love exists, the need to give. And I think those are really like human abilities, and those are things we must teach our children, to love, to share. Um, we always think, okay, I'm always in the better position, I need to give. And people who are in worse positions than us, they think the same way too. Sometimes they have empathy, they have love, they're thinking like, okay, how can I help this person? So for me, that was an eye-opening moment, to even in my capability of giving to people, do not um, hinder people's blessing from giving as well. I took the coins. I told him thank you. I didn't want to take it, but I think I still have those coins in the bag up to today. And he said he's going to get more because he wants to become a pilot. And when people come, or his mom, his host mother, goes to different places. She'll bring them coins, and he keeps them because he wants to be a pilot. And when you remember these things, you pray for these children and the innocence they have, and just hope that okay, that is carries them throughout this world, and the world doesn't steal that innocence and
Yes.
that love.
I really like that. There's so many things there. I was thinking as you were talking. Um, when you said, I think to the effect that their happiness were dependent on you going. They had their happiness. I think that's something we
Yeah.
miss sometimes, or doesn't get
Mm-hmm.
projected on TV about people's in
Mm-hmm.
different parts of the world. Because even in
Yeah.
Guyana, I've seen footage
Mm-hmm.
about the kids playing, bucking their tires in the
Mm-hmm.
street. And people say they're
Yeah.
Sin City ghetto people. But when I look at it, I see childhood days, I see joy, I see freedom that's in some first world countries that you can't replicate
Mm-hmm.
because there's so many dangers, you know? And yes, their happiness might not be that of what other people experience in their place, but like you said, they have it
Mm-hmm.
there. I'm glad we talked about that
Yeah.
and what their potentials are and how they live. And knowing that
Mm-hmm.
is part of your journey. So as we
Mm-hmm.
wrap up, any takeaways you want to leave with us or anything we didn't talk about so far? My internet is a little unstable. I don't know what happened. Yeah. Yeah. Anything?
Okay. Yes. So I've shared bits and pieces here and
Yeah.
there. I
Mhm.
think for my life, someone's like, Kayshell, when are we getting the book? Because you've experienced so much. And I know it's such a short time we weren't able to get into everything. But
Yes.
ultimately, the knowledge and experiences that I've gained throughout my journeys and throughout all those trips have helped me, especially even in difficult times,
Mhm.
dealing with routine, relocating unexpectedly back home. I wasn't expecting this. There were a lot of unexpected things that have happened.
Yeah.
What I've learned is to continue to persevere. The notion of there is no box is very dynamic. Like, okay, there's no one way our life can go. Look at the pandemic has shown us how to
Yeah.
be creative, to be dynamic. And coupled with my experiences from traveling and from meeting people, being able to network and to connect, I feel like those are lifelong principles and lessons that, okay, I'm going to be a doctor, yes, and I'm going to study medicine and have all this great knowledge about healing people. But what is healing people if you can't connect with people? And that's something I feel like I'm going to continue to hold close to me to add value, the ability to connect. Okay, I've connected with people in China, Africa, um, and to just give a love. There is no, for this giraffe, as I was saying,
Right.
there should
Mhm.
of love that we can give. And those are qualities I've learned growing up as a child, growing up from my mother and my father, who both have instilled, loving, being caring, being kind and compassionate.
Mhm.
And all of those have come together to make me the individual that I am today. So Kayshell has grown so big and has so many experiences, and out of all these experiences, teachers of life are still love, kindness, compassion. They will take you a very, very, very far away. Yes.
Thank you so much, Kayshell. With the look of the giraffe looking out of this box, Kayshell has handed it to us. So we have something that we can put in our little purse, in our hearts, and to take us through life. If it's your story, you can share it. So, Kayshell, thank you so much. Our intention here is to
Yes.
inspire, to teach, and even to encourage ourselves. So, with that said, my people, walk good. Kayshell, you're drinking the tea. I getting
Yes,
jealous.
I gotta finish it. I finish it. Have a blessed morning, everyone. Blessed day, because I don't know.
And guess what? Before we go, everybody, Keisha and I were talking about this at the beginning. We were saying to ourselves, we got to prepare for the cock that gonna crow. And and there you go, the
Oh
cock crow.
yes. Oh
Anytime,
yes, they did.
yeah, even in Guyana, you gotta hear the cocks crow. So those who are not Guyanese, it's a thing. And we just go right ahead because it's quite normal. Yeah. So
And actually one time
yeah, go ahead.
Miss Karen, one I follow and admire a lot on Facebook, was talking that, she does not want to lose the essence of appreciating the cocktail crew. Because I realize,
Yeah.
I recognize, but there are a lot of people who don't recognize that the birds chirp and the cocks crow. So yes,
Yeah.
I hope even Guyanese, we do not lose the appreciation of the bird chirp, because you don't get this. This is very unique.
I love it. I love it. I'm a country girl. I can do all of that. But I so love it. And I'm glad that the cock crew, when we're talking about you and the love of these animals, and especially giraffe and so on, it just fits right in.
Yes,
So, people,
it
what?
does.
No, I can't even stop talking. What a cup say, girl?
Oh, this cup says, girl boss.
Well, there we have it, Miss Kayshell Jennings, medical student doing her clinicals in Guyana. I wish you all the best on your journey, and you're gonna go great places. You have the heart for people, and thank you so much for your invaluable stories.